This channel is made possible through the support of generous listeners just like you. If you would like to be a part of helping us bring our message of hope, peace, love, and spiritual truth to the world, please consider heading to experienceofthesoul.com/support, where you can join us as an ongoing patron or simply make a one-time gift. Blessings on the journey, dear friend.
Natural Awakenings Magazine and Zen Living Realty present The Authentic Spiritual Journey, a weekly show featuring real and practical spiritual conversations from diverse perspectives here on the Experience of the Soul podcast channel. Today, episode 106, Soul Freedom. And now your host, Reverend Cynthia Alice Anderson.
Hello and welcome to the Authentic Spiritual Journey. My name is Cynthia Alice Anderson. I'm the host, and I'm here today in my home studio with my producer.
Hello, everybody. This is Dave Croft. Thank you so much for joining us for show 106 of The Authentic Spiritual Journey. So glad to have you on board. We are still doing the social distance thing, just because I know, Alice, you've been doing a lot of traveling, and we're just playing it safe. Just better safe than sorry. And, here in Florida, the COVID cases have just skyrocketed. 4,000 new cases yesterday as of when we were recording this, and it's a little scary, but that's why we're still in our separate locations. But I have no doubt that soon we'll be able to be back together again in 818 Studios.
Exactly. We are doing the best we can to be safe. I know all of you that are listening are making some of the same decisions we are. When do we go out? When do we not go out? When do we go to church or not go to church? So that's been quite a process at CC Orlando as well. So we bless you in whatever decision you make, and also want to caution you that if you are at risk, if you feel, especially if age-wise, you're at risk, if your immune system is
Compromised.
If your immune system is compromised, we do urge you to stay home as much as possible. And we know you have to live, but we want everybody to be as safe as possible. So take care and know that we're supporting you in doing that. And I actually have found, and I have heard from people, that the show is even more important now because we are home so much. More people are listening to podcasts. More people, even than ever before, are doing YouTube, and which is hard to believe. I thought YouTube had hit its max, but no, everybody, actually, I'll say every man in my life loves YouTube. From my 13-year-old to the 70-something-year-olds that I know, every man I know loves YouTube right now.
Man, I learned so much from YouTube.
See?
I got during the shutdown, I got way into like grilling. I've always had like a little Weber grill or whatever, but my brother-in-law is way into it, and so he's kind of become my sensei of real life grilling. And so like indirect and smoking, and we're talking ribs and pork butt and whole chickens. And so literally everything I've learned either from him or from watching YouTube videos.
There you go. Well, it is a wonderful thing to do at home, and it does feel like a party when you make something on the grill, I have to admit. So I think it's pretty amazing that you're doing it. I think there have been a lot of pluses to being at home during COVID-19. And it's funny, I recently learned the teens call it Corona, and old people like us, Dave, call it COVID.
COVID, right? Or the Rona.
The Rona.
The Rona.
The Rona, exactly. So it's funny that we're talking about being locked in because, locked in again because of the cases going up. And it's really important that we are mindful again and taking care of ourselves. And yes, more people are online, and we're thrilled that you are and that the show is supporting you. And that means there's more time for you to do your spiritual work. And this is exactly the time to do your spiritual work. I also believe that because we were home, because we were not quote unquote busy, that the whole racial movement that we're seeing, continue to move forward with Black Lives Matter.
Mm-hmm.
I think the reason it did come to a head is because people were not so busy that they couldn't ignore it. And, this is how spirit works. This is how healing begins to happen. And so it's important today, I felt, because we are just a couple days from Independence Day. And the title of today's show, and Dave, I think you said it, the title of today's show is Soul Freedom.
Yep, soul freedom.
Soul Freedom. And any regular listener to the show knows that we're always talking about our soul evolving, our soul moving forward, our soul living from our soul rather than body consciousness. We really want to live from the soul. And that when we do that, everything benefits our mind, body, and soul. And that, living from soul means living from a higher consciousness, a higher way of being, connected to spirit all the time. And this is what we strive for. And the ultimate reason for the show, we often say, is to reawaken consciousness to love, acceptance, and peace. Well, love, acceptance, and peace come by living from the soul. So, what would soul freedom look like? What would soul freedom look like? Well, I want you to think of it this way. We're celebrating Independence Day. So, the question for you today is, what is it you would like to be independent from? What is it you would like to be independent from? And the follow up to that is, if you were independent from it, in other words, if you were free from it, where would you be in 1 year? Where would you be in 1 year? What is it you want to be independent from? What do you want? In other words, what do you want to be free from? And if you were, where would you be in 1 year? Where would you be in 1 year? Now, the temptation of all of our spiritual listeners is going to be, I want to be free from fear. Well, I mean, yes, we all want to be free from fear, but I want you to dial it down. I want you to get specific. I want you to get very real with yourself, because you are the only one, you and God working together, obviously. But it is God within, remember. So, as a matter of fact, let me back up and say a little more about that. So, I still at times will say phrases like you and God, when in fact, wherever you are, God is. What I'm really meaning is your personality self and your highest self are going to be working together, because in your highest self, you're always connected to God. Well, so is your personality. You just don't know it, right? So when I'm talking about what do you want to be free from, this is the lower self of you working with the higher self. What does the lower self of you need to be free from, right? And it's your higher self, that which we call God, right? You are the individuation of the allness. You are, or the way I love to make fun of, I love to say, I am the isness of the allness of the oneness, which you are, which you are. So you are the is of God. God is in you, right? So God is in you. So part of your soul freedom, by the way, is just accepting this idea. God is in you, right? God is the is of you. God is. So God is in me, God is in you. Same God, but we are the individuation of this God presence. So when I say you and God, what I'm really meaning is you and your highest self. And I want to really dial that down and help you begin to really think of yourself in this way rather than God out there and me over here. Because when we stay in this thinking of God out there, what happens is that we abdicate responsibility outside of ourselves and we go, "Oh well, I don't know how to do this." But in fact, we do. We have access to all knowledge. We have access to all goodness. We have access to all power because God is in me. God is me. God is you. And so the further we can move into that realization, and any of you watching YouTube are going to be probably noticing my hands. I keep pulling my hands apart, like to try to expand our thinking. It's like we've got God in a little tiny box up in the sky that says God. And I want to take that box and I want to open it and for us to go, oh my goodness, and just see and feel this presence of God get bigger and bigger and bigger, and know that we are definitely an aspect of that. Take the box and put it right in your very heart, and let it explode from there, right? Because that's really the truth of what God is and who God is. And is God more expansive than just us as the individual? Of course. God is the sun, moon, stars, sky, trees, earth, you know, space, the expansiveness of the galaxies of the universe. Yes, that's God also. But my point is, we want to move our awareness inward and begin to live from our higher self. And that way we can move more into our soul freedom. So now, if there was anything you could be independent from, what would that be? And if you were independent from it, where would you be in 1 year? Where would you be in 1 year? This is a very valid question to ask oneself. What do I want to be independent from? What's been holding me back? What's been dogging me? What's been coming up for healing that I keep ignoring? What is this intuition? I keep feeling like I want to move a certain direction, but I don't do it. So every day is your Independence Day. Every day is the opportunity to wake up. Every day is the opportunity to be free. In truth, you're already free, but your mind doesn't know it yet. In truth, you're already free, but your mind doesn't know it yet. So I really want to encourage you to journal this idea. If I could be free from or independent from this, where would I be in 1 year? But first, you have to name it. First, you have to name it. The reason I'm focusing so much on this question and on God within is that as long as God is outside of us, we don't take responsibility at the highest level for our own spiritual growth and evolution. And it's a journey in consciousness to begin to think about this. In our culture and in Hollywood, God is outside and far, far removed. God is up in the sky. God is an old white guy. God is angry. God is distant. God sends his own son to be killed. This is a hard figure to trust. So, believing that God is within and that the presence of God is a huge leap in our development in spiritual understanding. God is. God is. This teaching is not new. This teaching is uh, this is the teaching about God. If you're in Hinduism, and God is often referred to actually as Mother in Hinduism, but the teaching is that God is everywhere present, and so even that though can keep us still thinking God is outside and God is here. God is within. God is in me. God is. God is. Beginning to know that, beginning to think about yourself from this new and higher awareness will change the way you go through life. There's no there's a different way to walk through life without fearing punishment from the divine. And what we begin to realize once we know that God is and God is in me, and when I'm saying God, I'm really meaning higher self, all that is, there's this expansive awareness that exists within our heart and soul. And we realize God is working on our behalf. So part of why we resist, part of why we are in bondage, well, they are life experiences. There are karmic situations in which we find ourselves. There are difficult conversations to have. There are decisions to be made. You know, life happens on life's terms, but everything happening ultimately is a result of our karmic play. It's it's a result of our dreams and desires. It's a result of choices that we've made even in this lifetime, right? So, what we're deciding now, which is why I'm asking you this question, what we're deciding now decides our future. Most of us view life in little tiny um, moments. So here's a moment, here's a moment, here's a moment. But every choice now is deciding your future, which is why, as much as possible, we try to make the best possible decisions that we can now. So the question we're asking is, if I could be free from anything, if I could be independent from anything, what would that be? And the follow up question to that is, if I were free from that thing, where would I be in 1 year? Where would I be in 1 year? And it's going to be important for you to journal these ideas. It's going to be important for you to name what it is you want to be independent from, because again, until you name it, you cannot heal it. And as you're learning to live from your God consciousness, as you're learning to live from your higher self, as soon as you write it down and say you're willing to release it, everything starts to move. Everything starts to move. And then when you put a timeline on it, it's like spirit in you wakes up and says, "Oh my goodness, I've got to get busy." So this is a real encouragement. It's a real inspiration. It's a real what's the word I want to use, Dave? When it's really going to just move you forward. Like it's like an igniter of your action.
A catalyst?
Yes, it's a real catalyst to get going. So write it down. You can even, if you're driving, don't try to write it as you're driving. But the reason and you can go back and listen again. And the reason I'm mentioning it many times is as you're thinking about this question, you might have different answers. You might have the same answer over and over. And that's important to pay attention to. But when you get time, I want you to write it down. And then I want you to journal that. And then where would I be in 1 year? And when we come back, I'll tell you my story around this question right after these messages.
We'll return to the program in just a few moments, but first, we wanted to give a special word of thanks to our podcast partner, Natural Awakenings Magazine of Central Florida, Greater Orlando. Each month, Natural Awakenings magazines across the country take a practical look at the latest natural approaches to nutrition, fitness, creative expression, personal growth, and sustainable living. Natural Awakenings magazine is a free publication and is available in selected stores, health and education centers, healing centers, public libraries, and wherever free publications are located. You could learn more, including advertising opportunities for your business, by calling 407-628-0705. We'd also like to extend our special thanks to Zen Living Realty. Zen Living Realty's mission is to mindfully serve, connect, and positively impact their customers, partners, and community through their Zen approach to real estate. Their vision is to be the most trusted real estate brokerage in the Central Florida area. You can reach Zen Living Realty at zenlivingrealty.com or call 407-800-2717. And now we return you to this week's episode of The Authentic Spiritual Journey with your host, Reverend Cynthia Alice Anderson.
Welcome back. We're glad you're with us. I have a feeling that you were really thinking on the break about that. And again, thank you to all of our sponsors. We're so blessed to have the support of the greater community. We thank you for your support. And what I love too about the people that are supporting us are doing so because they're deep on their spiritual journey as well. And that really, really touches me that they're bringing spiritual principle into their life and into their work, on a deep level. And I wanted to mention that something that's been coming forward for me is I've really been working with a lot of corporate clients and individuals who are working at some of the biggest corporations in the country. And it inspires me to know that so many in upper management positions are realizing that the old way of doing things isn't working, and they're working at being more conscious, at bringing in intention. So I just honor each of you, any of our listeners who are doing that at the corporate level. It's been a long time coming and a long time needed, and it inspires me to know that it's happening. So that's bringing some good soul freedom and some good spiritual teaching into the workplace. So years ago, I was asked that question. If you could be independent from anything, what would that be? And if you were independent from that thing, where would you be within 1 year? And my spiritual teacher at that time asked me that question on the 4th of July. And I don't think I'd ever had somebody call me into that type of responsibility for my life. It was like, okay, what do you want to be independent from? And if you are, what would you do? In other words, this is not an empty wish. This is not oh, well, maybe if God works it out for me, or maybe if it's my karma, things are going to go well, or no. What do you want to be independent from? And if you are, where would you be in 1 year? Name it, So what I named that I wanted to be independent from is fear of not being good enough. And where I would be in 1 year is ministerial school. And what was even more scary is that we were in a group of people and we had to say all of our answers out loud. And then you had a discourse and dialogue with the teacher in front of everyone. It was kind of like a spiritual counseling session, but you didn't get to close the door. It was like everybody was a part of your growth and evolution right there. And part of having to say it in front of a group was part of our evolvement, because it made us own it even more, because we knew as a group we were going to be held accountable for what it is we were doing. It's like, well, and it happened. And it happened to me. Well, for instance, it was like, well, you want to be in ministerial school? Great. What have you done to get ready for that? So are you good enough? Are you good enough? Do you believe you're good enough? So, and she said, the group can tell you all day you're good enough, but you have to know you're good enough. So, how are you going to know that? What are you going to do to be free from that old idea? Name it. Name it. Friends, we don't know how powerful we are. Sometimes it could just make me cry. This happens so often on a Sunday where if I look out at the congregation, or it even happened the other day with somebody one-on-one, I thought, this person is so powerful, they don't know it yet. I'm going to hold space till they get it, but I can see 1 year, 2 years, 3 years from now, they're not going to believe where their life is. But right now, they're just beginning to step forward. So this is true for all of us, friends, that we are so powerful in co-creating our lives. So what do you want to be independent from? What would you do and where would you be in a year, if you were? And then that's going to begin to decide what your next steps are. I'm going to be very honest and say, if you don't want your life to change, don't answer this question. You can't answer this question half meaning it or glibly. The universe knows no different. If you say, I want to be independent from this, and this is where I'll be in a year, it's already moving. Because your intention goes out before you. And then when you really give it form and start giving voice to it, the scriptures say our word does not return to us void. In the early days of Unity too, I should mention, because I'm a Unity minister, I always go back to the founder's teachings. And even though I know many of our listeners are Baptist, Catholic, Buddhist, we have Muslim listeners, and I honor you in that. I don't think anything I would ever say of our founders would disagree with your faith, because what they taught and what they lived were universal spiritual principles. Anyway, so what I was going to say is that Charles Fillmore, Unity's co-founder, would say, speak the word. He would say, as long as something is just an idea at the level of the mind and you don't give it form by speaking it, it's not as powerful. Right? So we want to speak the word, what we want to be independent from, and then where we would be in a year, so that the universe, it's like all of a sudden when we speak the word, like for instance, if I speak the word love, that has with it an energy, that has with it a consciousness. And that word love wants to draw more love to it. So we know from the work of Dr. Emoto, Dave, if you'll look up that, I think Dr. Emoto's book is called Hidden Messages in Water, I believe. He was the scientist who did all the research about when you spoke words into water and then crystallized it, like by making ice, that it crystallized differently by the words that you spoke to it. So hate looked very different from love.
Yeah,
So
so we'll have a link to that in our show notes.
is that the name of it? Hidden Messages in
Yep.
Water?
Yeah, absolutely. Hidden Messages. Let me see if there's a subtitle. No, Hidden Messages in Water by Masaru Emoto.
Yeah. Masaru Emoto. Right. Japanese. Right. So Dr. Emoto did really great work on this. I'm describing this because all the words that we're putting out have a vibration. And it's why if you gossip about people, they feel it, because you're sending out a certain vibration, and we're all connected, right? It's also why if you're saying really good things about people, they feel it, and that energy comes back to you, right? So I really want to make the point to you of speaking the word, because as you speak the word, it wakes up this particular energy, not only in you and around you, like in your auric field, but it also then becomes an attractor to you. Like, we often talk about the law of attraction. And the law of attraction says, whatever thoughts are held in mind, whatever you most focus on, whatever you most think about, that's what you draw to you. So when you say you want to be independent from something, like you're ready to be free from something, and you speak that, it helps you, it helps convince your mind, it helps the universe help you to release it. It's like if I'm really working on release, I will often call on my spirits, my spirit guides, and my angels to help me. I mean, one of the affirmations I say every day is my etheric team works on my behalf. My etheric team works on my behalf. So I'm always calling forth the energy of the angels and the spirit guides and all my spiritual helpers, Jesus Christ, to take this energy. If there's something I'm trying to release, I ask for help. I call in Archangel Michael specifically and say, take all this negative energy, which Archangel Michael is known for clearing, negative energies and thought forms. So when I'm trying to clear this energy, I call forth the highest energies to help. But they can't help. They can only help so much until I'm ready to release it. But then when I'm ready, it's like they're there. They're helping. They're pulling it out, pulling it out, pulling it out. Yes, no, yes. Yes to this, no to this. We'll take this, keep that, right? So my word, my speaking the word, releases all of this spiritual support to help me. And then when I say where am I going to be in 1 year, and I name that, that gives me a direction that helps me go forward, that helps me move in the direction of my dreams, of my desires. And we know that desire is always moving us forward. It is as Charles Fillmore said, the onward impulse of the ever evolving soul. Our desires have been with us since the beginning of time. And every time we listen and follow that heart desire, and I often say the higher desire to be more, to experience things, this is this higher energy, this higher desire that wants to move us forward. All of this comes from first naming what we want to be independent from, acknowledging where we want to be in 1 year. So, first we journal about those things so we get clear. And then, most importantly, is speaking the word. That is what begins to move things forward. Speaking the word. I see you speaking the word of truth in your own life. Speak the word.
And you don't necessarily just mean kind of in your head. You mean actually physically saying it, writing it down,
That's right. Speaking it out loud.
manifesting it.
Speaking it out loud. And then as you work more deeply with it, it can become a daily affirmation. It might transition into a vision or goal that you have for yourself or for your life, or even for your family's life. It depends on what you want to be independent from. How deeply it goes. And I really want to encourage to be for all of us, and I'm encouraging myself in this, to be as specific as possible. Just saying fear is not enough. Everybody wants to be free from fear. But if you were free from fear, then okay, let's say you say that general. Well, then you still have to say, where would you be in 1 year without fear? So the reason you name it, like fear of not being good enough, or fear of not succeeding, or fear of succeeding, either one, whatever that fear may be, to name that, because then it has less power in your life. Fear unnamed is ruling your life on every level. It's it's called, psychologically, it's called your complex. Spiritually, we often call it the egoic self that just lives from fear. But again, naming the fear where it is, because Dave, my fear could be different than yours. And if I'm just being really general, it doesn't make me responsible to heal that part of my life.
Mm,
Right.
right.
And my fear, like I said, of not being good enough, I don't know how I got that fear, if it was my family of origin. I had a lot of very talented people in my family. I was the youngest. So people around me always knew more, it seemed like, than I did. Of course, some of them were 10 and 15 and 20 years older, but I felt like I should know. So I kind of made up this complex that maybe I wasn't good enough, or I didn't know enough, or whatever. So it's yeah, I'm still working on healing this. I'm still working on healing this. But when I was asked that question and could name it, it was like, oh, that is the fear. That is the fear, not just fear, but fear of not being good enough. Okay. Well, what if I knew I was good enough? Where would I be in a year? Oh, I would apply for ministerial school right
Mm.
away. I mean, I felt called for ministry when I was like 8 years old. So I'd always wanted to be a minister. And I even worked in the church. I started working in the church as a choir director when I was 15. So I mean, I've worked in the church for 35 years. So, it was definitely a desire that had been with me for a very long time. And so I'd served in other capacities, but never, did the minister thing. I thought, well, maybe I'll just do this, or maybe I'll just do that. And I loved being the music director, and there's certainly nothing less about that. But I think I was kind of hiding out a little bit, you know. I think all that experience has helped me be a better minister. But once I got clear, oh yes, I really want to be a minister. And I had already moved to Kansas City. That's what was so funny. I knew I wanted to do it, but I hadn't moved forward. I hadn't moved forward yet.
So you didn't move to Kansas City for
I
Unity.
did.
Okay.
Yes, I did. And it was so interesting because everybody said, "Oh, you're never going to get in."
So you moved before you were accepted.
Oh,
You
yes.
moved out there on faith that, hey, this is
Yes.
happening.
Yes, I wasn't sure exactly how it was going to work, but yes, because I'd only been in Unity. Well, I'd only been in Unity about a year. I think I'd found Unity in '98. Before that, I had worked in the United Methodist Church. I had worked in a Presbyterian church, um, and several United Methodist churches I worked in over the years. And and once I found Unity, I was like, oh my goodness, I get it. This is where I'm supposed to be. Because I felt like I was always pushing the Methodist Church to be something it wasn't. And in the Presbyterian church when I worked there, and there was a Lutheran church, yeah, as well. I was just doing it for a job, really, because that's what I knew how to do. I knew how to direct music,
Right.
and it was an extra job, to have during college. But once I found Unity, it was like, oh my goodness, I get this. I want to do this. And so when I moved, to Kansas City, uh, I started taking classes right away. I'd only had one class in Unity. I'd only had one class in Unity. And when I was taking classes at Unity Village, somebody said, oh, you're going to apply? And I said, yep, I'm taking all my classes right now to apply. I said, I'm not working yet, so I'm trying to get all my classes in, because you could take 40 credits in a week. Um, they're not like college credits. It sounds like more than it was, but it was, basically I was in class from 9 to 4 every day, or 9 to 5.
Right.
And all those classes had homework, but I that's what I did. So I took several of the weeks to get on my classes. And somebody said, "Oh, you're never going to get in." They never let anybody in who's this new to Unity. And of course, it fed right into my complex of not good enough.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, maybe, but I'm going to apply. I said, well, I feel guided to apply. And then I got on at a church right away. I got hired at the Unity Church in Overland Park, which was, I mean, there were 1,200 people on a Sunday there, and just it was a really big corporate ministry. I had great experience there. And of course, I applied, and all those people that had been in Unity for years did not get in, but I did. So I think me having that spiritual teacher, me being so supported in the principles I'm sharing now on the show, uh, is what gave me the strength and gave me the courage to keep moving forward. Because I really, at that time, was really learning and starting to believe that maybe I really could do this.
Mm.
And it felt like a divine appointment. It didn't feel like I had much of a choice. It felt like, okay, this is my next step. And I really did not have a plan B. And I think that's how I knew it was my next step, because I didn't have a plan B. I knew I had to do it. All the things I'd done before, I wasn't having any fun doing them anymore. I could do them, I could play gigs, but it was like, you know, great, another show. I'm just not into
Right.
it,
Right.
you know. So I did get in, obviously, and in general, I made, I still have lifelong friends um, from my program there. So I'm saying all this, friends, to say, don't be afraid to release whatever that thing is you want to be independent from. Spirit does not set us up to fail. And following this internal guidance of what we want to be independent from is the only way we can move forward. It's the only way we can evolve. If we're not happy, if we're not being fulfilled, and we really feel this drive and this desire to release something, we have to do it.
It's just to be clear, I mean, this could be vocationally, this could be relationship-wise, this could
Anything.
be just yeah, it could because, yeah, all episode as we've been talking, I am so, like, career-minded, and I'm challenging myself, where would I wanna be in a year? What am I holding on to, And I know, like, for Shannon, she a couple of years ago, she said, "In 1 year, I'm gonna leave Full Sail, I'm
Mhm.
gonna step out." And so I always just kind of bend back towards career-wise. And so but that's okay, that's part of it. Or it could be, like I said, a relationship, or it could
Could be
be
I want to be pregnant. I mean, it could be
yeah,
anything. Not for you, Dave,
right.
but yeah, it could be anything. And that's what was so interesting. As a matter of fact, going back to that day, because I hadn't been in Kansas City long, and I met this woman that was my spiritual teacher for some time, and I still talk with. And she, you know, uh, all the answers were very, very different, and most were relational oriented. Most some were work oriented, but so many were relationship oriented. And one person said, um, it was something like, I want to be free from my fear of being in crowds.
Mm,
It's like I just am tired of this fear running my life. It was very, very specific, and we were like, yeah. Like they were comfortable in a small group, but they couldn't leave the house hardly, to go places. And it was like, I want to be free from this. I don't want this controlling my life. And so, we all were just like, yes. We
yeah, I could imagine that I'm
Go
sorry.
ahead.
I could imagine that the more clear and precise it is, then the easier it could be to find a path through that.
Yes. I mean, the specificity and the need for that cannot be overstated, because
Yeah.
it helps you. It's not about getting an answer right. The spiritual teacher had no preconceived idea of what we should answer, and it was just like, here's your opportunity for you to say, what do you want to be free from?
Mm.
And here I thought I was just going to go over and have a sandwich and a hot dog for the 4th of July. I was like, oh, this is a thing.
Mm. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, it was
That's
good.
good.
And we hope, friends, that you're taking this in and that you're working with it. Always remember too that, as you're doing this work, that support is available for you. I do one-on-one coaching. It's my honor and pleasure to do that. And if you need help working through some of this, it's so easy. You go onto my website, you schedule, you click, you pay, and you're on my calendar. And I love it, and I'm happy to help you. I'm happy to support you. And sometimes we need help, working through this. I know I did after answering that question. So I just want to lift that up, that if you're needing more spiritual support, don't hesitate to reach out so that we can make that happen for you, because I don't want you to be alone in this. Also, all the other classes and the various things that I am engaged in and involved with, including CCU, are absolutely there to support you, on the journey. So, as always, we thank you for joining us on the show. We bless you on the journey, and we are always praying with you and for God's highest and best in your life. So, blessings on the journey, dear friend, and we'll see you soon. Bye bye.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of The Authentic Spiritual Journey presented by Natural Awakenings Magazine and Zen Living Realty. The Experience of the Soul podcast channel is also made possible through the continued support of our angel patrons, Dove Borland, Peter Gibson, Paul Caswell, Arlene Meyer, Kathy and Terry, Marcia Mott, Nora Miles, Diana Cox, Leslie Williams, Susanna Garcia, Shayla Mount, Dorothy Moore, Aggie Payton, Taryn Tucker, and Anna Evans. The Authentic Spiritual Journey is copyright 2020 Cynthia Alice Anderson, all rights reserved. Our theme music is composed by Dave Croft and used with permission from RR Hot Publishing. The Experience of the Soul podcast channel is a production of 818 Studios.